Marcus Chen checked his weapon for the third time that morning. The plasma rifle felt heavy in his hands, but not as heavy as the doubt in his chest. He stood outside the Crystal Palace gates, waiting for Princess Lirelei to emerge for her journey to the sacred groves. The other guards ignored him. They were all Zephyrians, tall and elegant with their blue translucent skin that seemed to glow in the morning light. Their movements were graceful, like dancers. Marcus felt clumsy next to them, with his brown skin and thick human build. Captain Zarian approached him with a look of disgust. "Human," he said, his voice like wind chimes. "Stay behind the princes at all times. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not touch anything sacred." Marcus nodded. He had heard worse insults during his 3 months on Zephyria. The aliens thought humans were stupid and violent. They only hired him because humans were cheap and surprisingly hard to kill. "I understand, sir," Marcus replied. The captain's large silver eyes narrowed. "Do you? Your kind barely lives 50 years? You cannot understand the importance of what we protect today." Before Marcus could respond, the palace doors opened with a musical chime. Princess Lirelei walked out, surrounded by 6 more guards. She was different from the other Zephyrians Marcus had seen. Her blue skin had a purple tint, and her silver hair moved like liquid mercury. When she looked at Marcus, her expression was curious rather than disgusted. "So you are the human guardian?" she said. Her voice was softer than the captain's, but still had that musical quality all Zephyrians possessed. "I have never traveled with one of your kind before." "I won't disappoint you, Your Highness," Marcus said. She studied his face for a moment. "I hope not. My life may depend on it." The journey to the sacred groves took 4 hours by hover transport. Marcus sat in the back, watching the beautiful landscape of Zephyria roll past. Crystal trees stretched toward the purple sky, their branches singing in harmonies that human ears could barely hear. Princess Lirelei spent most of the trip in meditation, preparing for the ritual that would prove her worthy to rule. Marcus used the time to study the other guards. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't identify what. Guard Thalion kept checking his chronometer. Guard Vexus repeatedly touched his communication device. Most concerning was Guard Corvain, who sat directly behind the princess. His hand rested too close to his weapon, and his eyes darted around nervously. Marcus tried to catch Captain Zarian's attention, but the captain was busy reading reports on his datapad. When Marcus cleared his throat, Zarian glanced up with irritation. "What is it, human?" "Sir, I think we should review the security protocols." "Some of the guards seem..." "Silence," Zarian hissed. "Do not question your betters. Zephyrian guards have protected royalty for 1,000 years. We do not need lessons from a primitive mercenary." Marcus fell silent but kept watching. His instincts had kept him alive through 3 wars on Earth and countless mercenary jobs across the galaxy. Those instincts screamed danger now. The sacred groves appeared suddenly, a massive forest of silver trees that rose like pillars into the sky. Ancient Zephyrian structures grew from the trees themselves, carved from living wood centuries ago. The air hummed with psychic energy that made Marcus's teeth ache. "It's beautiful," Princess Lirelei whispered as they landed. The ritual site lay deep in the forest, where the oldest life trees grew. According to Zephyrian tradition, the princes had to commune with these ancient trees alone. The psychic connection would either accept her as a worthy ruler or reject her completely. Many candidates had died during this trial. As they walked through the forest paths, Marcus noticed more troubling signs. Guard Thalion had fallen back, claiming equipment trouble. Guard Vexus kept looking at his communication device. When Marcus glanced at it, he saw coded messages flashing across the screen. "Captain," Marcus said urgently, "we need to abort this mission. Something is very wrong." Captain Zarian stopped walking and faced Marcus with fury. "How dare you suggest we abandon a sacred ritual based on your paranoid human thoughts? Princess Lirelei has prepared for this her entire life. Please, just listen. No, you will remain silent, or I will have you arrested for interference with royal duties." Princess Lirelei had been listening to their conversation. She approached Marcus with a thoughtful expression. "What concerns you, Guardian?" Marcus hesitated. Speaking against Zephyrian guards to their princes could end his career or worse. But his sister back on Earth needed the medicine that only this job could buy. Your Highness, I believe some of your guards are compromised. They're acting suspicious, receiving coded messages. I think this might be a trap. The princess looked at her guards, then back at Marcus. These warriors have served my family for decades. You have known them for hours. Why should I trust your judgment over theirs? Because I have nothing to gain by lying to you, Marcus said simply. If you die, I don't get paid. If you live and I'm wrong, I lose my job. I only speak because your safety matters more than my career. Something in his voice must have convinced her. Princess Lirelei studied his face carefully, using her psychic abilities to sense his emotions. Marcus felt a gentle touch in his mind, probing for deception. Finding none, she nodded slowly. Very well. We will proceed, but with increased caution. Captain Zarian, adjust our formation. As they approached the ritual site, Marcus's worst fears were confirmed. Guard Corvain fell back, speaking quietly into his communicator. Ahead, Marcus spotted movement in the trees that didn't match the local wildlife patterns. The attack came without warning. Energy bolts erupted from the forest, aimed directly at Princess Lirelei. Marcus threw himself forward, knocking her to the ground as the shots passed over their heads. Ambush! He shouted, raising his weapon. The clearing erupted in chaos as masked figures emerged from hiding. Marcus realized with horror that Guard Stallion, Vexus, and Corvain had drawn their weapons, but they were pointing them at the princess. Not the attackers. The betrayal was complete. Princess Lirelei was trapped in the middle of the sacred groves, surrounded by enemies, with only one human guardian standing between her and death. Marcus pulled Princess Lirelei behind a fallen life tree as energy bolts scorched the air around them. The betrayal cut deep. 3 of her own guards had turned against her, and Captain Zarian lay motionless near the tree line, killed in the first moments of the attack. Stay down, Marcus whispered to the princess. How many attackers can you sense? Lirelei closed her eyes, extending her psychic abilities. Her face went pale. 12, maybe 15. They have neural disruptors, weapons designed to scramble Zephyrian brain patterns. If they hit me, she didn't need to finish. Marcus understood. The attackers weren't just trying to kill the princess, they wanted to drive her insane first. The Void Syndicate, she whispered. Terrorists who want to destroy our government. But how did they know about the ritual? Only the royal family and trusted guards knew the exact timing. Marcus glanced at the 3 traitorous guards who were now advancing with the masked terrorists. They've been planning this for months, maybe years. An energy bolt struck the log inches from Marcus's head, showering him with burning wood chips. He counted the attackers' positions, calculating angles and cover points with the tactical mind that had kept him alive through dozens of battles. Your Highness, I'm going to create a distraction. When I give the signal, run toward the deepest part of the grove. The psychic energy from the ancient trees might interfere with their weapons. What about you? She asked. Marcus checked his weapon's charge. Full power, maybe enough for 20 shots if he was careful. Against 15 enemies with superior weapons and position, the odds were hopeless. I'll buy you time, he said. Before she could protest, Marcus rolled out from behind the log, firing as he moved. His first shot caught Guard Thalion in the chest, dropping the traitor instantly. His second shot took down a masked terrorist who had been flanking their position. The return fire was devastating. Energy bolts filled the air like angry lightning. Marcus dove and rolled, using every piece of cover he could find. The attackers expected him to fight like a Zephyrian standing upright, using graceful movements and coordinated tactics. Instead, Marcus fought like a human. He crawled through mud, hid behind rocks too small for proper cover, and used tricks that no civilized warrior would consider. When Guard Vexus advanced confidently, expecting honorable combat, Marcus shot him from beneath a pile of fallen leaves. Impossible, one terrorist shouted. How does he move so unpredictably? Marcus smiled grimly. Unpredictability was humanity's greatest weapon. While other species fought with logic and honor, humans fought to win. He spotted Princess Lirelei running toward the ancient trees as instructed. Good, she was almost to safety. But Guard Corvain had noticed her movement and was moving to intercept. Marcus made a desperate sprint across open ground, drawing fire from 5 different weapons. Energy bolts singed his clothes and scorched the earth around his feet. He reached Corvain just as the traitor raised his weapon toward the princess. The fight was brutal and close. Corvain was faster and stronger, but Marcus fought with the fury of a man protecting something precious. They crashed through the undergrowth, trading blows that would have killed smaller creatures. Marcus finally got his hands around Corvain's throat. "Why?" he gasped. "Why betray your own princess?" Corvain's silver eyes were full of hate. "Because she was going to change things. Make peace with humans. Treat your kind as equals. The Zephyrian Empire must remain pure." With his last breath, Corvain activated a dead man's switch on his weapon. The energy discharge threw Marcus 20 feet through the air. When Marcus struggled to his feet, he saw the real threat emerging from the trees. The Void Syndicate's leader stepped into the clearing, his body covered in cybernetic enhancements that made him more machine than Zephyrian. Half his face was metal, and his remaining eye glowed red with artificial light. "Impressive, human," the cyborg said in a voice like grinding metal. "You have eliminated 7 of my warriors and 3 traitors, but it ends now." Marcus raised his weapon, but the charge indicator showed empty. His ammunition was spent. The cyborg raised a massive energy cannon that hummed with lethal power. "Tell me, primitive creature, was it worth dying for an alien princess who considers you barely above an animal?" Marcus looked toward the grove where Princess Lirelei had taken shelter. She was watching from behind an ancient life tree, her silver eyes wide with terror, not for herself, but for him. In that moment, Marcus understood something that the cyborg never could. Worth wasn't measured by how others saw you. It was measured by the choices you made when everything was on the line. "Some things are worth dying for," Marcus said. He pulled the plasma grenade from his belt, his last resort, meant only for the most desperate situations. The cyborg's eye widened as he recognized what Marcus held. "You're insane. You'll kill yourself." "I know," Marcus said calmly. He armed the grenade and sprinted toward the cyborg. Knowing he had 3 seconds before detonation, the cyborg fired his cannon, but Marcus was already too close. The energy blast scorched his back, sending agony through every nerve, but he kept running. 2 seconds. Marcus tackled the cyborg, wrapping his arms around the terrorist leader, even as his own clothes caught fire from the damaged cybernetics. 1 second. "Tell me again how worthless humans are," Marcus whispered. The explosion lit up the sacred grove like a small sun. The blast wave shattered crystal formations and sent ancient trees swaying. When the light faded, nothing remained where Marcus and the cyborg had stood except scorched earth and scattered metal. Princess Lirelei ran to the crater, tears streaming down her face. She had felt something impossible in that final moment, Marcus's mind reaching out to hers as he died. His consciousness touched with such fierce determination to protect her that it burned like a star. She knelt at the edge of the blast crater, placing her hands on the warm earth. Without thinking, driven by grief and desperation, she reached out with her psychic abilities, trying to find some trace of the man who had died, saving her life. What she found changed everything. Marcus's consciousness was still there, somehow preserved in the psychic echoes of his final moment. As she touched his fading thoughts, something unprecedented happened. Her mind pulled him in, wrapping his dying neural patterns in her own psychic energy. Princess Lirelei gasped as she felt Marcus's awareness settle into her consciousness like a second soul sharing her body. He was alive but not alive, present but not physical, thinking and aware but existing only within her mind. She had saved him, but at what cost? And what would happen when others discovered what she had done? The last surviving terrorists fled into the forest, terrified by the explosion that had killed their leader. Princess Lirelei was alone in the sacred grove, carrying the consciousness of a dead human hero within her own mind. The ritual was complete, but not in any way the ancient traditions had ever imagined. 6 months had passed since the attack in the sacred groves. Princess Lirelei was now Queen Lirelei, crowned after her mother's peaceful death from old age. The coronation had been magnificent. with representatives from across the galaxy attending to witness the young Queen's ascension. None of them knew about the secret she carried in her mind. Queen Lirale sat in her private chambers, staring out at the crystal spires of her capital city. To anyone watching, she appeared to be in meditation. In reality, she was having a conversation that no one else could hear. "You need to tell them," Marcus's voice echoed in her thoughts. "This can't continue forever." "I cannot," she replied without speaking aloud. After months of practice, their mental communication had become natural. "If the council discovers what happened, they will demand your removal." "Maybe that's for the best," Marcus said sadly. "I'm dead, Lirale. I should have stayed that way." The Queen felt his pain like a physical ache in her chest. Marcus existed within her consciousness as a complete person. He could think, remember, feel emotions, and even dream. But he had no body, no physical presence, no way to interact with the world except through her dot. It was a unique form of torment. Marcus could see through her eyes, hear through her ears, and experience everything she experienced. But he could not touch anything, speak to anyone directly, or make any choices about his existence. He was a passenger in her life, aware but powerless. "You are not dead," Lirale said firmly. "You think, therefore you exist? The form of that existence may be unusual, but you are very much alive." "Alive?" Marcus's mental laugh was bitter. "I haven't felt sunlight on my skin in 6 months. I can't taste food, though I experience flavor through your senses. I can't even scratch an itch because I don't have a body to itch. What kind of life is this?" Lirale closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his despair. In the beginning, both of them had hoped this was temporary, a side effect of trauma that would fade with time. But as months passed, it became clear that Marcus's consciousness had truly merged with hers in a way that Zephyrian science had never seen before. She had consulted medical experts secretly, claiming she was researching theoretical cases for academic purposes. The doctors all agreed that such a thing was impossible. Consciousness required a physical brain to exist. Without a body, awareness should simply cease, yet Marcus remained as real and present as her own thoughts. "Your existence serves a purpose," she said. "Without your advice, I would never have uncovered the corruption in the military command. Your insights into human psychology helped me negotiate the trade agreements with Earth Colony 7. This was true. Since Marcus's death, Queen Lirale's rule had been remarkably effective. She had reformed the military, improved relations with other species, and even established the first cultural exchange programs with human colonies. Her subjects praised her wisdom and progressive thinking. They did not know that many of her best decisions came from long conversations with a dead human hero who lived in her mind. "I miss my sister," Marcus said suddenly. "Sarah needed surgery. The money from this job was supposed to pay for it." "Is she—" "She received the payment," Lirale assured him quickly. "I made sure of it. Your contract was honored in full, and I added a bonus for your sacrifice. Sarah's surgery was successful." Relief flooded through Marcus's consciousness, and Lirale felt it as clearly as if it were her own emotion. This was another strange aspect of their shared existence. Their feelings often blended together, making it difficult to know where one mind ended and the other began. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry to her chambers. Lirale composed herself quickly, assuming the formal posture expected of a queen. "Enter," she called. Lord Valeth glided into the room, his ancient features set in a mask of concern. As the oldest member of the Royal Council, he served as her primary advisor, though he often disapproved of her progressive policies. "Your Majesty," he said with a respectful bow, "I must speak with you about concerning reports from the palace staff." Lirale felt Marcus's attention sharpen within her mind. "What reports?" "Guards have observed you speaking to empty air during private moments. Palace physicians report that your brain scans show unusual neural patterns. Some fear you may be suffering from psychic feedback syndrome, a condition that sometimes affects those who experience traumatic telepathic contact." "I am perfectly well," Lirale said calmly, though her heart raced. "Of course, Your Majesty. But perhaps a full medical examination would ease the concerns of your subjects." The royal physician could conduct a thorough scan to prove your mental health is sound. He's suspicious, Marcus warned in her thoughts. Be careful. Lirelei stood and moved to the window, buying time to think. A full medical scan would reveal Marcus's presence immediately. Zephyrion technology could detect foreign neural patterns with ease. I appreciate the Council's concern, she said finally. However, I must decline the examination. The stress of recent events has indeed affected me, but meditation and rest will restore my balance. Lord Valeth's silver eyes narrowed slightly. Your Majesty, the good of the realm must come before personal preferences. If there is any question about your mental fitness to rule— Are you questioning my fitness, Lord Valeth? Lirelei's voice carried the authority of absolute power. The old counselor bowed again, but his expression remained troubled. Never, Your Majesty. I serve only to protect the crown and the realm. After he left, Lirelei sank into her chair with exhaustion. The stress of hiding Marcus's existence was becoming unbearable. This can't continue, Marcus said gently. You're destroying yourself trying to protect me. I'm grateful beyond words, but maybe it's time to let me go. No, Lirelei said fiercely. You saved my life. You changed my perspective on what it means to rule with wisdom rather than prejudice. I will not abandon you now. Then we need another solution, Marcus said. Because Lord Valeth is not going to give up. Sooner or later, he's going to force a confrontation. Lirelei stared out at her crystal city, its spires reaching toward the purple sky like frozen lightning. Somewhere in those gleaming towers, plans were already being made to remove the foreign consciousness from their queen's mind. She had the power to resist for now. But how long before the pressure became too great? How long before her secret was exposed and she was forced to choose between her crown and her conscience? Marcus, she said softly, if the council discovers you, what would you want me to do? His answer came without hesitation. Save yourself. Save your people. Don't let them destroy everything good you've accomplished just to preserve one dead human. But even as he spoke those selfless words, Lirelei was forming a different plan. Marcus had taught her that some things were worth any sacrifice. Now she would teach her people the same lesson. No matter what the cost, the Queen's decision would soon shake the foundations of the Zephyrian Empire itself. The emergency council meeting was called at dawn. Queen Lirelei entered the chamber to find her advisors in a state of panic. Lord Valeth stood at the central display, pointing to tactical maps that showed red warning symbols across the planet. Your Majesty, General Corvin reported, his usual composure shattered. The Void Syndicate has launched coordinated attacks on 7 major cities. They're using guerrilla tactics we've never seen before, striking quickly, then disappearing into civilian populations. Lirelei studied the reports while Marcus analyzed them in her mind. The attacks were sophisticated, using human-style hit-and-run tactics that Zephyrian military doctrine had never encountered. They've learned from their failure at the Sacred Groves, Marcus observed in her thoughts. Someone taught them human combat strategies. How many casualties? The Queen asked aloud. 3,000 dead, twice that wounded, General Corvin replied. But the worst part is their psychological warfare. They're broadcasting messages claiming, the royal line is corrupted, that you've been compromised by alien influences. Lord Valeth's ancient eyes fixed on the Queen. An interesting accusation, considering the reports about your behavior over recent months. What are you suggesting? Lirelei demanded. I suggest nothing, Your Majesty. But perhaps this crisis would be better handled by leaders whose mental state is beyond question. The debate continued for hours as reports of new attacks flooded in. The Syndicate seemed to anticipate every Zephyrian military response, countering their elegant formations with chaotic human-style warfare that turned their own strengths against them. General Corvin spread his hands helplessly. They know how we think, how we fight. Every time we deploy forces, they've already moved to a new position. Because they're thinking like humans now, Marcus said in Lirelei's mind. Forget formation fighting. Forget honor, you need to think dirty. Lirelei felt the weight of her secret pressing down like a physical force. Her people were dying while she hid the one resource that could save them. The choice was no longer between her crown and her conscience, it was between Marcus's safety and her subjects' lives. "General," she said suddenly, "evacuate all personnel from the command center except the inner council." "Your Majesty?" Valeth questioned. "Do it now?" When only the 5 most senior advisors remained, Queen Lirelei stood at the center of the chamber. Her decision was made, whatever the consequences. "What I'm about to tell you will challenge everything you believe about consciousness, about life itself, and about the worth of other species." She closed her eyes and opened her mind completely, allowing Marcus to speak through her voice. When she opened them again, her posture had changed subtly, becoming more alert and aggressive. "My name is Marcus Chun," she said in a voice that was hers but carried different inflections. "I died 6 months ago protecting your princes from the Void Syndicate. But death, it turns out, was not the end of my story." The council members stared in shocked silence. Lord Valeth's face went pale with horror. "Impossible," General Corvin whispered. "Your Majesty, what sickness is this?" Lord Valeth demanded. "No sickness," Marcus continued through Lirelei's voice. "Your queen saved my consciousness as I died, preserving it within her own psychic matrix. I have existed within her mind for 6 months, serving as her advisor and protector." "Blasphemy!" Valeth spat. "The sacred mind of our queen contaminated by alien thoughts." "Contaminated?" Marcus's anger colored Lirelei's features. "I have helped her become the greatest ruler in your recent history. Her military reforms, her diplomatic successes, her progressive policies, all guided by human insights combined with Zephyrian wisdom. You admit to manipulating our sovereign?" "I admit to serving her as loyally in death as I did in life." General Corvin found his voice. "Even if this is true, how does it help us now?" "The Syndicate is destroying our cities." Marcus smiled through Lirelei's features. "Because I understand how they think. They're using human guerrilla tactics taught by someone who knows our strengths and weaknesses. But I know humans better than anyone alive because I am one." Over the next hour, Marcus outlined a complete counter-strategy. He identified the Syndicate's likely hideouts based on human psychology rather than Zephyrian logic. He predicted their next moves and explained how to turn their own tactics against them. "Deploy small teams, not large formations," he advised through the Queen. "Make them think like Zephyrians again by forcing them into situations where honor matters more than efficiency. Use their human training as a weakness." The strategy was brilliant, unconventional, and completely alien to Zephyrian thinking. General Corvin deployed the new tactics immediately, and within hours. They began to show results, but Lord Valeth was not impressed by success. "This proves nothing except that our queen has been compromised by an alien consciousness. The human must be removed." "Removed how?" demanded Commander Seraphine, the queen's younger sister. "If his consciousness truly exists within her mind, attempting removal could kill them both." "Better that than allowing this contamination to spread?" Valeth replied coldly. The argument continued as news of military victories began to arrive. Marcus's strategies were working perfectly. The Syndicate's human-trained terrorists found themselves outmaneuvered by tactics that used their own training against them. Within 12 hours, the crisis was over. The Syndicate's leadership was captured or killed, and their remaining forces scattered. The capital was safe, the empire secure, but the political cost was just beginning. "The human consciousness must be exorcised," Lord Valeth declared when the council reconvened. "Our queen cannot be allowed to harbor an alien presence, no matter how useful it proves." "You speak of exorcism as if Marcus were a demon," Seraphina protested. "He saved our world twice, once with his life and again with his death." "His species is irrelevant," Valeth replied. "What matters is the purity of the royal bloodline and the sanctity of Zephyrian leadership." Queen Lirelei felt Marcus's sorrow like a knife in her heart. He had known this moment would come, had prepared himself for rejection and exile from the only existence he had left. "If the council demands it," Marcus said through her voice, "I will submit to whatever procedure they choose. I have no wish to cause division among your people." "No," Lirelei said, her own voice returning with fierce determination. "I will not allow it. Marcus Chain died protecting me when my own guards betrayed me. He has served faithfully for 6 months, asking nothing in return. I will not repay that loyalty with destruction. Lord Valeth's expression hardened. Then you force us to choose between our queen and our principles? The council cannot accept an alien consciousness influencing the crown. Then perhaps, Queen Lirale said quietly, you need a new queen. The chamber fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. She was offering to abdicate rather than sacrifice Marcus, a decision that would throw the Empire into chaos but preserve her honor and his existence. Your Majesty, Seraphine said urgently. Please, there must be another way. Lirale looked at each council member in turn. There is. You can choose to expand your definition of what deserves protection under Zephyrian law. You can choose to judge consciousness by its actions rather than its origin. The Queen's challenge hung in the air like a sword. The future of the Empire and the relationship between two species balanced on their decision. The Royal Council chamber had never been so tense. For 3 days, the greatest minds in the Zephyrian Empire debated a question that had no precedent in their 1,000-year history. What rights did consciousness possess when it existed outside the traditional boundaries of life and death? Queen Lirale sat on her throne, feeling Marcus's presence like a warm light in her mind. He had remained silent during the debates, allowing her people to decide his fate without interference. Lord Valeth presented his arguments with the passion of absolute conviction. The purity of our royal bloodline has guided the Empire for centuries. To allow alien contamination of our Queen's mind sets a precedent that will destroy everything our ancestors built. But what if that precedent leads to something better? Commander Seraphine countered. She had become an unexpected ally, speaking for a growing faction of younger Zephyrians who questioned their society's isolationist policies. Marcus Chen has proven himself twice over. His strategies saved our capital, his council has improved our Queen's rule. His species is irrelevant to the question, Valeth replied. A dog might be loyal and useful, but we do not allow dogs to influence matters of state. The comparison stung. Marcus felt the insult like a physical blow, but his response through Lirale's voice was measured. Lord Valeth, I understand your concerns. My existence challenges your fundamental beliefs about consciousness and worth. But I ask you this, should the measure of a being be its origin or its actions? Pretty words from a parasite, Valeth sneered. Parasite? Seraphine's voice rose with anger. This parasite saved the princess when your trusted guards betrayed her? This parasite sacrificed his life to protect our royal line. This parasite guided our military to victory when our own generals failed. General Corvin, who had been silent throughout most of the debate, finally spoke. I have served the crown for 40 years. I have never seen strategies more effective than those provided by the human consciousness. From a purely military perspective, Marcus Chen is invaluable. And from a moral perspective? Dr. Thessarian asked. The royal physician had spent days studying the medical implications of Marcus's existence. I cannot explain how his consciousness persists within the Queen's mind. By all known science, it should be impossible. Yet he feels he demonstrates clear self-awareness. How do we define life itself if not by these qualities? The debate raged on, touching the deepest philosophical questions their civilization had ever faced. What made someone alive? What rights did consciousness possess? Could worth be measured by actions rather than biology? As the arguments continued, reports arrived from across the Empire. News of Marcus's existence had leaked, and the reaction was sharply divided. Traditional Zephyrians demanded his removal, viewing him as contamination of their pure society. But younger citizens, especially those who had interacted with humans through trade and diplomacy, saw him differently. Protests erupted in the capital. Free the human hero, banners appeared alongside preserve royal purity signs. The Empire was dividing along generational lines, with older citizens demanding tradition while younger ones embraced change. Look what you have done, Valeth accused. The Empire tears itself apart because of your alien pet. The Empire examines its conscience, Lirale replied calmly. That is never comfortable, but it is necessary. On the fourth day, a surprising voice joined the debate. Princess Liralay's great-grandmother, the ancient Dowager Empress Eliana, requested to address the council. At nearly 500 years old, she was the oldest living member of the royal family and commanded absolute respect. She entered the chamber slowly, her age-dimmed silver eyes still sharp with intelligence. When she spoke, even Lord Valeth fell silent. I have lived through 5 reigns and witnessed our empire's greatest triumphs and failures. I have seen the cost of pride and the price of prejudice. She paused, studying each face in the chamber. Tell me, Lord Valeth, what made our ancestors great? Their purity, their wisdom, their dedication to Zephyrian superiority, Valeth replied immediately. Wrong, the Dowager Empress said flatly. Our ancestors were great because they adapted. When the Crystal Plague threatened to destroy our world, they accepted help from the Theta Collective aliens whose touch was toxic to our kind. When the Void Wars began, they allied with species they had once considered beneath notice. Our empire survived and grew because our leaders chose progress over prejudice. She turned to face Queen Liralay directly. Child, I would speak with this Marcus Chun. Liralay closed her eyes, allowing Marcus to speak through her voice. When she opened them, her posture had shifted to something more military in bearing. Your Imperial Majesty, Marcus said respectfully. You are the human who died protecting my great-granddaughter? Yes, Your Majesty. And you have continued to serve her in this strange after-death? I have done my best to be worthy of her protection. The ancient empress studied him through Liralay's features for a long moment. What do you want from this existence, Marcus Chun? The question caught everyone by surprise. Marcus was quiet for several heartbeats before answering. I want to help, he said simply. I never asked for this existence, never expected to survive my death. But since I have this strange second chance, I want to use it to build bridges between our peoples. Humans and Zephyrians have much to learn from each other. And if we choose to remove you, if we decide your existence is too dangerous to allow, then I will go peacefully, grateful for the time I have had and the chance to serve once more. Dowager Empress Eliana nodded slowly. Lord Valeth, you speak of purity and tradition, but I remember when we first encountered humans 50 years ago. We called them crude barbarians, barely above animals. Yet here stands proof that a human consciousness can not only survive in ways our science cannot explain, but can serve with such loyalty that he would rather face destruction than cause division among our people. She stood with effort, her ancient frame still carrying the dignity of absolute authority. The question before us is not whether Marcus Chun deserves to exist. The question is whether we deserve him. The chamber fell silent. Even Valeth seemed stunned by the rebuke. I propose a compromise, the Dowager Empress continued. Marcus Chun will remain within our Queen's consciousness, but under formal recognition and regulation. His existence will be publicly acknowledged, his contributions officially recorded. Let him serve as the first ambassador of his kind of bridge between the living and the dead, between human and Zephyrian understanding, and if his influence corrupts our Queen? Valeth asked desperately. Then we will deal with that when it happens, the Empress replied. But fear of what might occur must not prevent us from doing what is right now. The vote was closer than expected, 4 in favor of the compromise, 3 opposed, with 1 abstention. Marcus would be allowed to remain, but his existence would no longer be secret. In the days that followed, the Zephyrian Empire adapted to an unprecedented situation. The Shun protocols were established, the first formal recognition of non-biological consciousness under Zephyrian law. Cultural exchange programs with human colonies expanded dramatically. Guided by Marcus's unique perspective, Queen Liralay's rule entered a new phase, marked by unprecedented cooperation between species. Her advisors learned to accept input from the human consciousness that shared her mind. And Marcus proved invaluable in negotiations with other alien civilizations. The protests gradually faded as people adjusted to the new reality. Some never accepted it, clinging to old prejudices. But many began to see Marcus as a symbol of something larger, proof that consciousness, loyalty, and worth could transcend the boundaries of species and even life itself. Late one evening, As Queen Lirelei stood on her balcony watching the crystal city sparkle in the starlight, Marcus spoke softly in her mind. "Do you ever regret saving me?" "Never," she replied without hesitation. "Do you regret staying?" Marcus considered the question. His existence was still strange, still limited, still a form of imprisonment. But through their partnership, he had helped forge new understanding between their peoples. Human-Zephyrian relations had never been stronger. "No," he said finally. "Some things are worth dying for. But apparently some things are worth living for too, even a life as unusual as this one." Queen Lirelei smiled as the first moon rose over her capital, its light reflecting off 1,000 crystal spires. In the distance, human and Zephyrian students worked together in the new cultural centers, learning from each other in ways their ancestors never could have imagined. Marcus Chun had died protecting an alien princess. But in refusing to release him, Queen Lirelei had given both their species something far more valuable: the chance to see past their differences and build a future worthy of the sacrifice that had made it possible. The bridge between worlds was complete, built not of crystal or metal, but of understanding, respect, and the unbreakable bonds that form when beings choose to see worth in each other regardless of the form that worth might take.